Hello guys, Charles here and welcome back to my channel. So in this recent video we talked about some pianistic style voicings, what that means and how to achieve them on the guitar. I wanted to explore further today the diminished pianistic voicing. So if you haven't checked that video out, maybe do go and check that one out before you look at this one, but you'll still benefit from this one. We're just not going to explain everything in such a great amount of detail as we have already covered it there. So the diminished voicing's one of the easier pianistic voicings to play. The issue with it is quite a stretch, so it works better in the kind of middle to top end of the guitar. So on the bottom four strings, the E, A, D and G strings, remember I've got a low B string here, so ignore this string nearest my face. We can play, for example, 17, 15, 13, 11, which is A, C, E flat, G flat. That gives us a nice A diminished voicing. Now we can continue that chord on the next string set by replacing each note, starting with a little finger going on the 15th fret of the A, 13th fret of the D, 11th fret of the G, and then because we've got this string tuned differently, remember G and B is only a third, although the shape wants to go to the 9th fret, it's going to have to go to the 10th fret there, so we've got 15, 13, 11 and 10, and that gives us C diminished, or the first inversion of A diminished, which is C, E flat, G flat, and A on the top, or if it were a C diminished, we'd call that a B double flat. We can move that up one string set again, D, G, B, E, which will be, again, replacing the notes we're already using. Fret 13 on the D string, fret 11 on the G, fret 10 on the B, and fret 8 here on the top E string. Now the notes we've got here are E flat, G flat, A, and C. So that's our third inversion of an A diminished. If this were a first inversion of a C diminished, we'd call that E flat, G flat, B double flat, and C. And if it were an E flat diminished, we'd call it E flat, G flat, B double flat, and D double flat. Now as voicings, those are quite nice and usable, especially in this area of the guitar. There's a couple of little tricks we can do with them though. So the first thing I want to show you relates to what we were talking about in the Softly as in a Morning Sunrise harmony video. We discussed this idea that a 7 flat 9 chord and a diminished chord are interchangeable. Now one of the nice things about the middle string set here, which is the A, D, G and B strings, if I go back to this C diminished shape, I've got here C, E flat, G flat, and B double flat or A. I can just flatten, bar my top finger onto the top E string as well and get this voicing, which is really pretty. Now what I'm doing there is adding a D on the top, and that changes the function of this entire chord from a C diminished to a D7 flat 9. Now I could add that D on the low E string as well by barring across everything, and that'll slightly change the context. You'll hear this now. So here's my C diminished, and with the D at the bottom and the top. Now, is that practical voicing? Well, no, probably not using a bar, but definitely if you just had your finger playing the bottom E string, 4-string shape, that's quite nice. And then if you are using this top shape, which is the one that I do tend to use, that's quite comfortable for me. It might be a bit of a stretch for you. If it is, try moving it up a few frets. Now remember, the benefit of these pianistic voicings is that the notes are quite close together, so it gives us very interesting voicings that we couldn't play using our traditional diminished shapes. The ones you might recognise look a bit like this. So C diminished, E flat diminished, G flat diminished. Those shapes, which you probably recognise, they're more intervallic, they're further spread apart. Now we can also use these as a lead playing tool, which is, I think, where they're really quite useful. There's two reasons these are useful. One is because they're quite visually clear. Compared to these clusters, these diminished clusters, or using these shapes for diminished, it's quite clear the way the intervals are going by just the shape of it. But also, it's very easy to rake these or sweep these, so we can get some quite fast elements in our playing, which are easier to do compared to these in position shapes, which you might be used to. So here's a little lick idea. Let's start on A diminished here, using the A string as our bottom note. So we've got 12, 10, 8 and 7 on those middle four strings. And and then we can go up to our B on the top string. So we're like playing a B7 flat 9 here. Then I can go up to the sharp 9 here, D, little trill. Then I can descend through these same diminished shapes. And remember, because they're next door strings, they're quite comfortable on the right hand. Do something like that, just resolving onto a nice E chord here. 16, 14, 14. Now when we're sweeping these, the same rule applies as with the previous pianistic voicings, which is for bigger stretches, it can make it a lot easier if we bring our elbow in between the guitar and our belly button. Now, because my guitar body is so small, you can actually still see my elbow, but you can imagine if I had a bigger guitar, my elbow would be hidden here. And that just gives me a little bit more space. There you go. I know it looks like it's somewhere where it doesn't want to be, my elbow, but I can assure you it's on my belly button. And that gives me a little bit more room to get this sweep. That's relatively comfortable, as uncomfortable as it looks. Try and keep relaxed, nothing should be forced, don't do yourself an injury. So I hope you found that one useful. It's really important to focus on the diminished chord because it's almost like a magic teleporter, transporter device. It can kind of take you wherever you want to go. So I've used it in quite a simple way here, just using a B7 to an E chord. However, a diminished chord can take you absolutely anywhere you want to go. It can get you there. So get really confident with diminished chords and get confident at going from a diminished chord to pretty much any root, and you'll always have something to play in most contexts. If you found this one useful, please do give it a like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and share with any of your friends who'll benefit from this idea. And as always, I hope you're all doing very well, getting plenty of practice in, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.
Roll up, let me embed a story you'll never forget. A drip, drip, but drowning in debt now. You can't buy your way out, and I heard you find it difficult to